You gave everything you had, and it still wasn't enough. The rejection letter came. The relationship ended. The business failed. The opportunity went to someone else. And now you're sitting with that familiar, heavy feeling, the one that whispers, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." Every human being knows this feeling. The Stoics knew it too. Marcus Aurelius lost battles. Seneca was exiled. Epictetus was a slave who was beaten and broken. And yet, they did not crumble. Not because they felt nothing, but because they had a philosophy for exactly this moment. This is how the Stoics handled failure and rejection, and how you can too. Before we get into the tools, we need to understand how the Stoics actually saw failure, because their view was radically different from ours. We live in a culture that treats failure as shameful, something to hide, something that defines your worth. The Stoics saw it completely differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." For the Stoics, failure was not the opposite of success. It was part of the path to it. Not a detour, not a punishment, not evidence of inadequacy. A teacher, a signal, a necessary part of the journey. Epictetus, who had experienced more genuine hardship than most of us ever will, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That single idea changes everything about how you experience failure. Because if failure is not about what happened, but about how you respond, then you are never truly defeated. You are only ever choosing your next move. The first Stoic tool for handling failure is what philosophers call the discipline of assent. In simple terms, it means choosing what meaning you attach to what happens to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about a rejection you've experienced, a job you didn't get, a person who didn't choose you, a goal you fell short of. The event itself is neutral. It happened. It's done. But the story you tell yourself about it, that is where the real damage occurs. I wasn't good enough. I never succeed. Things never work out for me.
These stories feel like facts. They are not facts. They are interpretations. And interpretations can be changed.
The Stoic practice is this: when failure hits, pause before you interpret it. Ask, what actually happened, stripped of all story, just the bare facts? I applied for a job. They chose someone else. That is all that happened. Everything else, the shame, the self-doubt, the catastrophizing, that is added by your mind. And what your mind adds, your mind can also remove. This is not denial, it is clarity, and clarity is where recovery begins. The second Stoic tool is treating failure not as a verdict, but as information. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." The Stoics were intensely practical people. They didn't wallow in failure. They interrogated it. What did this failure reveal about my preparation? About my approach? About my assumptions? Marcus Aurelius kept a private journal specifically for this purpose. Every failure, every difficult day, every moment where he fell short of his own standards, he examined it honestly, not harshly, not with self-flagellation, but with the curiosity of a scientist examining data. He would ask, what can I learn from this? What would I do differently? What did this reveal about where I still need to grow? This is the difference between people who are broken by failure and people who are built by it. The ones who are built by it treat every setback as a tutorial. Here is your practice. The next time something goes wrong, instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to show me?" One question pulls you into victimhood, the other pulls you into agency. The Stoics always chose agency. The third lesson is one of the most comforting in all of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed deeply in what they called the logos, the rational order underlying all of existence. In practical terms, this meant they trusted that what appeared to be a closed door was often, in hindsight, exactly what needed to happen. Seneca was exiled from Rome by Emperor Claudius, sent away from everything he had built, everyone he knew, everything he valued. And in exile, he wrote some of his greatest works. He developed his philosophy more deeply than he ever could have in the noise and politics of Rome. The rejection that felt like destruction became the condition for his greatest contribution. Marcus Aurelius faced constant military defeats, political betrayals, and personal losses. Each one, he wrote, taught him something that victory never could. The Stoic view is not that everything happens for a reason in some magical sense. It is more grounded than that. It is that you, a resilient, capable, rational human being, can find a way to use whatever happens to you, even the worst things. And when one path closes, there is always something to be done with where you now stand. The question is never, "Why did this happen?" The question is always, "What will I do from here?" The fourth and final lesson is perhaps the most liberating. One of the deepest fears beneath failure and rejection is not the practical consequence. It is what other people will think. We fear being judged, being seen as inadequate, losing status in the eyes of others. The Stoics had a direct response to this fear. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Read that again. We claim to value ourselves, and yet we hand the power to define our worth to strangers, colleagues, critics, and people who will forget about us by next week. Epictetus was even more direct. He said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Your reputation is what others think of you. You cannot control it. Your character is who you actually are. That, and only that, is within your control. When failure strikes publicly, when the rejection is witnessed, when the mistake is visible, the Stoic response is to ask one question only: have I acted with integrity? If yes, then what others think is simply not your business. If no, then fix it, quietly, humbly, without drama, and move forward. Your character survives every failure intact, if you choose to keep it that way. Failure is not the end of your story. For the Stoics, it was often where the real story began. Marcus Aurelius failed as a military commander. Multiple times, he kept going. Seneca was exiled, stripped of everything, and eventually forced to take his own life. He faced it with the calm of a man who had never confused his circumstances with his character. Epictetus was born a slave, had his leg broken, owned almost nothing his entire life, and became immortal. None of them were untouched by failure. All of them were shaped by it. The 4 lessons. 1. Separate the event from the meaning you attach to it. 2. Treat failure as feedback, not verdict. 3. Trust that rejection often redirects you somewhere better. 4. Protect your character, not your reputation. These are not consolations. They are tools, and tools only work if you pick them up and use them. If this video helped you see your own failures differently, share it with someone who is going through a hard time right now. Subscribe for more wisdom like this. And remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, in the dark, in private, after one of the hardest periods of his reign. The obstacle is the way. Whatever you are facing right now, you are not blocked, you are being directed.